This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted to be joined, as always, by Dave Coldwell. We're still in lockdown. It's week number 250 something. How are you, Dave?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Still keeping busy. Still keeping the kids busy, and putting things into place, making plans. You know, you've got to keep on keeping the old brain ticking. Otherwise, you just get stuck in that rut, don't you?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are in that sort of mindset now. When I first spoke to you, I think it was the first weekend of the lockdown when the shows had been cancelled. We did the Insta Live and you called in. And you didn't strike me as somebody who would particularly enjoy lockdown. How's the whole experience been throughout? Because you're usually one of the busier people I speak to.
I'm struggling with not actually working, hands-on working. I've been doing a lot of work in other things, setting a few different ideas up, signing in with Timlin, doing the FaceTime coaching sessions with my fighters that I coach, Jordan and Hope. But I'm missing going to the gym. I'm missing the hands-on, the intricacies of the sport and my job, and I'm missing the events, the adrenaline of fight night and things like that. I'm struggling with that, but I'm just filling my mind and filling my days up with other things. And my son's keeping me busy, my daughter's keeping me busy with her music, and so yeah. I've found the days have flown by. I really have. But there's not, I think in the whole period, what are we, 8 weeks in? I think I've had certainly had maybe 2.5 days where I've been like, felt shit. But that's not bad going at all. Not bad going at all. So I'm quite comfortable with a lot more people that are struggling a lot worse than me. So yeah, I'm quite happy with how we've handled it as a family. We've kind of from day one out. I said to them, "Let's attack it and see this is the new normal." So the more positive we are and make a structure of how we're going to live day-to-day life, the easier we'll handle it, and that's what's happened really. Like I said, you can't do anything about missing the actual work, the actual boxing, the actual pad work, communications, the craft, everything. You can't do anything about that. So I do miss that.
When you're doing this, is something I've wanted to ask you actually, because I've seen you've been doing your FaceTime sessions and stuff.
Yes.
Apart from the obvious of you not being there, how do they differ from a conventional training session?
So it's a little bit like, when you have I've seen all the fight, a lot of old coaches or whatever, some coaches, they'll have a coach there sat in the corner and he's all on the outside of the ring and he's got a pad man or he's got he's just stood there and he's sat there and he's watching things from a different angle, telling me exactly what to do and things like that. It's kind of like that, but what I've done with the fighters and Jordan especially is stripped everything back, right down to the absolute basics. And just drilling. That's my dog. Excuses like that. This is what we have to cope with every single day, nearly every minute of the day.
You're okay. Go on.
There's a door between us, in the room between us. You can see Liam. So I've stripped everything back and just drilling, and then we'll do two combinations, two certain moves per day, drilling for the session. And now, as the weeks have gone by, I can see how his posture is, how he's firing when he's throwing the shots. Because you haven't got the stress of a day, you're not working to a specific day. Anything. You've got no time restrictions. You don't have to cram everything in. The sparring, and everything else, and taking things out of the body. I've got him just to do exactly what I need him to do, technically, and his technique's so much better. And now when he's flowing, his actually delivery of the punches and everything is so much better than what it was. It's been very, very beneficial. We've had some real good results out of this. So when I'm allowed to have the one-to-one, the pad work and stuff like that with him, and the sparring, we just need a few weeks of that, and then he's good to go straight away. You know, he's fortunate in that his dad used to coach him as an amateur, so his dad's been doing the pads exactly. I've been saying what I want him to do, and he needs to hold the pad like this, and he needs to do this, and then I need Jordan to deliver it in this manner. So his dad's been there as a padman for me, which I've never had. I've never had any assistants in the gym or anything like that. So it's been good because I'm seeing it from a different angle as well. I've got his wife filming, holding the phone. So it's been very, very good. And I can actually see now when I say to right, I want to see on the bike, do around on the bike, and I see how he is, his posture, his stance, and the way that he's delivering the punches. I'm seeing the fruits of stripping everything back and then just focusing on the pure technique for each shot. So then even because you're just doing one shot at a time, then when you start putting them all together, because you've been used to delivering in a certain way, it flows into that combination. So it's been very good.
Do you think that's something that you might use, whether it's sparingly or here and there when you go back, when you're actually allowed to work in there, maybe bring in a pad man, give you a little bit of a different perspective?
Do you know what? I have actually thought about that. Funny enough, in the last few days, I have actually thought about that. But maybe it is something that I can do. I've never had assistants and things like that. I do everything on my own in the gym. So whether I would with Jordan's dad, I would, not a problem. He works in the corner, but he lives in Peterborough, so it's maybe it's a case of once a week or something like that. If it comes up, then maybe. But I like the hands-on side of things, and the other thing is it saves my body getting battered, and it's just a different perspective when you're looking at. I get it from when you see you see the Reynosos and other people. I'm just picking names out that I've seen it where you'll see them instructing, and the pad guy is there holding the pads and doing things like that. I see other camps and other coaches doing that, so it may be something that I do look to employ. I'm always, even before all this, I'm always about learning new things and looking at new ways to improve as a coach. Anyway, so possibly that's something, but I will always be hands-on coach 99% of the time.
Have you been watching a lot of boxing in the downtime? Because I've spoken to a lot of trainers in this, and I think it probably surprised some people and not surprised others that you have trainers who, even in this lockdown, are watching 3-4 fights a day. Ben Davison, for example. And then you have somebody like, for example, Shane McGuigan, who doesn't watch an awful lot of boxing outside of things. Where are you in that?
I always, regardless lockdown or anything, I watch a lot of boxing at night time. My days are filled up. And then at night, as in when my wife's gone to sleep, everybody's in bed, they're all asleep. I'm up from about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning till about 3, watching fights. I like to watch fights the last thing that I do before I go to bed. I like to study the last thing before I go to bed, rather than in the day or whatever. If I watch boxing in the day, it's for entertainment. It's because I want to watch the fight just for entertainment. If I want to study and if I want to learn and if I want to just study, then it's what I do before I go to bed. That's the last thing I do before I go to bed, and that's basically 7 days a week. That's what I do, because I'm not a big sleeper. I've never have been, and I find that if whatever information I take the last thing before I go to sleep, I seem to retain so much better than if I'm doing something in the day. It's just how I work.
There's a reason for that. You can. I can't remember the exact.
I read up on that. Actually,
it's just before you go to bed and also first thing in the morning. They're the best times to ingest information.
Yeah,
you retain it a lot better. Maybe there's going to be some sort of mind expert who can explain why in the comments.
I read that, and that just confirmed why I see. Because I'm one of those kids where I always have been, where I can recall. It's like it just. I can recall. I don't. My memory's shit in terms of dates and things like that. No good. But in terms of when I see a fight, I see a knockout or whatever, I just remember it. I can play it in my head. I don't even have to watch it on screen. I know exactly how it goes. If I see something once, even the fights that my fighters have been involved with. But that's probably because I do watch a lot of stuff all before I go to bed.
Are these fights that pertain or affect or work alongside the fights that you've got, or are these just general fights that you watch to study?
A bit of both. I look at different things that have got nothing to do with my fighters, but then especially when it's things that I want to do specific for my boxers, because you can't just watch a fight and that works. It works for him. I'll put it into my fight. Well, your fighter's mechanically got to be able to do it anyway, and he's got to be that kind of fighter, because certain fighters can't do things that physically because of the different to other fighters. But yeah, I watch a lot of stuff that I can implement with my boxers that I'm working with. Can he do this that's successful in that pattern when at the right times, and then there are just other things that I just want to learn just for myself. So I watch quite a bit of different stuff.
I'm a late night fight watcher as well. What fights have you been watching, or what sort of fighters or snippets?
I watch do you know what? I watch a lot of. As a rule, I watch a lot of Lomachenko. I watch a lot of Usyk, Sugar Ray Leonard, even Terry Norris, Mike McCallum's. I watch a lot of Mike McCallum. So many different fighters, different fights. James Toney, Michael Nunn, who else? All sorts. Watch a lot of different fighters, from different times. A few of the modern days, but a lot of the older, 80s, 90s sort of fighters.
Interesting. I've been watching a lot of James Toney, Mike McCallum as well. James Toney, my favourite fighter. I met Mike McCallum. Go on.
So James Toney and Mike McCallum, for me, their fights, especially the first fight, are one of the most underrated fights that there is.
It's my favourite fight.
I think technically and to learn from, and especially a young fighter, I think that's a go-to fight. You just see what these guys are doing. Just lock him out. The daughter's going out, so whenever she's going out, or whenever one of us are going out, he's under my eye. He don't want to leave house, so he's yapping. So I think that is a great technical fight, and you know what? It's skills, it's body punching, it's the use of the jab, different kind of jab. It's a great fight, and I watch that a lot.
One of the reasons why I like that fight is because I think it's after McCallum's prime, but not too much, and it's before Toney's prime, but again not too much. So you've got kind of a guy in James Toney on the way up, and McCallum slightly on the way down, who's obviously a natural 154 pounder. Yeah. And you can see the development in the second fight. Obviously, they had 3 fights. The second fight, you can see what Toney's learned from McCallum from the first fight.
Yeah, and that is what being a young fighter is all about. Being a young fighter that goes in against somebody that's got more experience than them and has achieved more than what they have at that stage. When you go into a fight with them, it's what do you take off them? What do you pinch off them? It's not, it's not always a case of going out there and blasting them out and just looking to get rid of them. What are you gonna? How are they going to educate you from the time that you've spent in that ring with them, the time that you've shared in that ring? Because that is all such an important part of a fighter's makeup. A fighter, building a fighter, preparing a fighter for what comes beyond, and hopefully, as a long-standing champion, how then will you face these other different challenges, different styles, and different mindsets on your way up? That's why when you're fighting guys that don't try to win and that are just your journeyman, that just tuck up and just try and be tough, And it's always a case of, can he get rid of him? Can he stop him quicker than the other prospect? It doesn't do anything for a fighter. You can fight journeymen that come to win, danger men, actual professional fighters, just that have got lots of records. Fight them, you can learn off of them. Fighting the guys that are just coming to tuck up doesn't teach anything. It's just about performing in their lives and handling frustration because you can't find the gaps and then people write you off because you didn't get rid of them against the guy that's just trying to survive. It's the fights that you learn against the guys that are there that are trying to win. The fights that you really learn are against the guys that expect to beat you. There's a big difference, And this is where when we're talking about prospects coming through, it's very hard to judge how good a prospect is while we're not seeing him in against the guy that expects to beat you. That first fight, when I think it's exciting, when you like Dubois and Joyce, it's that first fight when they get paired against a guy, when they look up in the opposite corner, that man is looking at you expecting to beat you, not coming and thinking, I'm going to give this a go. And then after a couple rounds realises he's out of his depth and then just starts surviving, just trying to not to get hurt. That's a different level. When you're in a guy that expects to beat you, even when things start, maybe starting going a little bit wrong for him, he's still thinking he's going to beat you. He's still thinking how to figure out the puzzle in order to beat you. So you can't switch off. You can't get sloppy, because you could lose that grip. And then when you see these fights where you see momentum shift, patterns change. One minute one minute he's beating you up. He's outsmarting you. He's just that bit too slick. Then you manage to figure out the lock, and then you start getting your rhythm. Then all of a sudden he starts figuring out that rhythm and breaks out. And them sort of fights are the fights where the fighters learn. Because it's not just physical. It's not who's got the fastest hands, who punches hardest. It's who's got that,
Do you think that's something that we need to? I mean, when boxing comes back in whatever version or whatever shape or form that we see, is that something that we need to look at? I mean, I remember speaking to Eddie last year about when we had Ted Cheeseman beaten by Sergio Garcia. We obviously had Jordan Gill lose to Tinoco. There was another Lewis Ritson lost to Francesco Patera.
Yeah.
And I said about kind of bridging the gap between around your British levels and the type of opponents that you're going to face there, and that European level, that step above, international level, kind of top 15 WBA level. Is that something that we need to look at, kind of how we're matching our prospects in these types of fights and bridging that gap?
100%. So I'll speak to you about Jordan because I've had first-hand experience. Before Jordan came to me, he had 16 pro fights. He was unbeaten in 16 fights, and he fought nothing but journeymen. He didn't have any real fights whatsoever. So his first fight with me was a little bit of a step up. He won that, and then his first TV breakout fight was Jason Cunningham. That's where his education really started. That's where, forget the sparring, forget the coaching and things like that. That's where his ring education really started there. So that is his first fight in the TV spotlight, and that's where he's in against a good fighter. He's been Coldwell champion numerous times, different weights champions. He's a great seasoned fighter, southpaw, and so that was his first real education. Came out of the ring, learnt loads. Fights Ryan Doyle in a fight that everyone's expecting to get beaten, or Doyle can punch, is this, is that, he's stopped Ruiz Palotta. That, again, education. These two fights, real education. Then has an international opponent in his hometown. The first time where he's top of the bill, and he dealt with that fantastically. Then runs into Tinoco. And that, despite that being a loss, and despite, he wasn't right for it, but despite all that, he made wrong decisions in that fight that cost him the fight. Because ultimately, after everything going against him and it being such a horrible, torrid night, I don't know if it was round 7, might have been round 7, where he did everything I needed him to do. He stripped it away. He didn't try to battle with the guy. He didn't try to keep him off to keep Tinoco off him with the power shot. He just went smart. That was all he needed to do. He showed that despite everything that had gone off, he could actually still pull this off. But then he got touched downstairs again, and his body just couldn't hold it, and then he got threw the towel and I stopped the fight. But that fight there, for me, although it took a little bit of time for me to get into his head and for him to digest it and understand everything that went off in that fight, there I would never take away from him. The result, what happened, everything, because he has learned so much from that fight. He's learned so much from Cunningham, learned so much from Doyle, from Martinez, I think his name was. Yes, but in different dimensions. But then that fight there, that one fight there with Tinoco, has done something for him where he's understood the art of patience and he's understood the art of being smart. And that, going forward, because this is a kid that at the time he's 24, he's 25 now, right? He's still a young kid. He's still a fantastic prospect. He hasn't, and this took a while to get into his head and make him understand. Just because you have got beat, forget when you're looking at Twitter, right? It doesn't change the fighter that he was before he went into the ring, right? You've still got that talent. You've still got that ability. It doesn't make all of a sudden you're a shit fighter. This is what people like to believe, is that the minute a good prospect or a good fighter, the minute he gets beat, he's shit him. He's never going to make it. Okay. What are you going to say about a lot of fighters that have been beat, stopped, and then still come back? Look at Linares. Look at Linares early on. He's been chinned in a couple of rounds and stuff like that. Look at the career that he's ended up having. You know, Lomachenko got beat. He come back. Now it's what you take from it, what you learn from it. How then do you arm yourself going forward so the same things don't happen again? And how then do you take from the guy that beat you to educate you to make you the better fighter, to understand? You know, and it's like when you spar, when you're sparring and you're sparring in guys that are a better class than you, better quality than you. What I used to try and do, listen, in the gym I was great. I was really, really good in the gym. I just couldn't do it on fight night. But I remember in the gym, if I was sparring guys that were better than me, your juniors, your Ishans, your Naz, people like that, and if they do something, I think I was good. I would then try and do it to them straight away, or in that same round, I would try and put it off. What's working with them on me, I would try to catch them with their own smarts, their own skills, and so then I am adding their success. I'm adding their talent, their abilities to myself. I may not be able to do it as well as them, but I'm trying. I'm adding it, and then you go away, then you practice. So if I was just sparring with guys that I'm having my own way all the time, and this is what happens with a lot of fighters, they like to be a cock of the gym. They like to have spars where they're the main man. Somebody comes in and then they can say, "Oh, sent him off and beat him up." That's why I don't mind this shit when people talk about, who did what in sparring sessions. Oh, these two sparred and he had the top side. Doesn't mean shit. Doesn't mean shit. Sparring's about learning. So I like to be in where I'm having questions asked of my fighters. I have got no ego as a coach. But you can bring a fighter to my gym and have the top side of the spar, and I'm like, good, that's what I want. Now then I have to get into my fighter's head, and make him understand the same thing. Listen, don't worry, that's part of your education. That's how we learn, that's how we adapt, and that's how we improve. Because then you learn from that spar, then we spar again, and then you see how you've altered and how you've adapted. And all these things of going in with people that are better than us or do certain things where they have success against us, if you can take that and add that to your game, it makes you a better fighter. So in the fights, you have to have competitive fights. 1 or 2 fights when you first turn pro, couple of fights, just to get used to the occasion, the newness of it all, being a professional fighter, know best, head guard, crowds of people watching you, hearing TV commentators speak if you're boxing your early doors on the night, all things like that. Get used to that. Get that out of your system. Then you need the fights where people throw and punch you back at you.
Okay, I found that very interesting. Before we move on, because I want to talk about obviously the British Boxing Board of Control guidelines that have just been issued, and subsequently Eddie's grand plans, the Bond style things that he's got going on. But before I talk about that, I want to talk to you about the INOUE fight that obviously you had Jamie McDonnell. You went over to Tokyo, and you went over to an
Yes, I know we were going to be talking about a loss of mine. I want to talk about another loss of mine I've just had. Can we talk about some wins?
This is an important. We'll speak about some of your wins. Probably another interview, but I want to know about preparation for somebody like that. We've spoken in the past about another loss, unfortunately, with the preparations for the Alexander Usyk fight. I'm always fascinated to speak to coaches in the other corner to these great fighters. I spoke to Shane McGuigan about Lomachenko, spoken to you about Usyk, etc. I don't think I've really heard you speak about the Inoue fight. Obviously, the fight was what it was, Jamie.
There wasn't a lot to talk about in the fight.
Exactly, but how do you prepare for something like that? What was the process and what was the game plan for Jamie going into fighting Inoue?
It's going back quite a while now. It was about being smart. Listen, Jamie's not a banger, right? You can't go to war with Inoue. You've got to be smart. You've got to box and use Jamie's attributes. Jamie's attributes are his range. He's so long. He's a very, very good boxer. He's got a great jab, and he's got a great head movement, great upper body movement. And it was about frustrating Inoue and just touching him, keeping him off balance and keeping him off set so he can't unload on his power shots. Now, I've seen a fight early doors in his career. I can't remember who it was against. I can't remember who it was against. And I'm sure he got nailed to the body. And I just saw a bit of a reaction. And he just goes quiet. He goes quiet a little bit. And the other guy starts teeing off a little bit more. But the other guy then gets a little bit confident and walks straight onto a shot. No, he doesn't. And I remember that Jamie's a very good body puncher, underrated body puncher. And it was about being smart, frustrating, and pinging him, using his good feet. And in those moments, that he gets up close, just nailing me a couple of body shots, tie him up, walking back, get back to range. And just trying to do that. We went to Japan. We had 2 weeks in Dubai, and then went across to Japan for a couple of weeks. We went to Japan with full confidence that we could pull it off, like we did with Kameda. Full confidence we could pull this off. That all went to shit on the morning of the weigh-in. So that's something that, I never want to go through again. It was the worst, as a coach, the worst experience and feeling of my life completely. All our mentalities completely changed from the morning of the weigh-in. After the weigh-in, I was Richard Towers out there. There was Richard, there was Jordan, and somebody else. Danny Wilson is S&C coach, and we was walking, and Jamie was just in front, and I said to the guys, listen, I said my sole priority in this fight now is to get him out safe. That was it. And Richard Towers will tell you, I actually said to Richard, if he gets out in the first round, I can pull it, because I knew he wasn't going to be right. I would have, from being so confident, this is one thing you can't prepare for, it's just experience. From being so confident and believing in your man, and everybody's confident, and the fighter's confident, from being like that to all of a sudden topsy-turvy all the way to where you want your man safe. And it was horrible. It was horrible. And so yeah, that is, he's a monster, and he's a great fighter. He really is. But I will say, he got a shell. I'm not saying it's going to change the result or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't disrespect him by saying that. But the facts are, he got a shell when he fought Jamie McDonnell, and that's ultimately that's what happened. It's something that we can't do anything about, and it's something that I am very thankful that it was so quick. That's all I can say about that one.
I don't mean to pry too much into it, and I appreciate with the kind of grisly world of weight making isn't always something that should be splashed around on any interview, really. But how important is it, and how how pivotal is it to get that weight cut right? And obviously, you're dealing with somebody in Jamie at that in that point had been at bantamweight for what 10 years or something at the time.
Yes, yeah. So I wanted him to move up quite a while, but it's very difficult when you are a world champion. You have a belt, you have something to hold, but you're not a commodity. In that respect, is when I'm saying you're not a commodity, you're not a commodity for the promoter of the TV network. You're defending your world title at 6:30, 7:30 at night, way down the bill when it's when everyone's in the bar and not even arrived at the arena yet. Right? So you're just boxing on them sort of shows. Right? You're not getting paid the massive money, but you're getting paid well, considering that you're boxing right down the bill. A kid boxing for a British or a European might be above you, or a big prospect might be above you, or whatever, and then you get to the main event. So to ask for a champion or for a fighter that's in that position to give up a title to move up a division, he's losing his bargaining chip. He's not a promoted fighter. He never got fanfare and like that. He got work on matchroom shows, on LA shows. Eddie looked after him in that thing, got him the big fights like that. But he's not a commodity for TV. When I say that, I mean not enough people turn on the TV to watch Jamie McDonnell, and that is a problem, right? If you're a big ticket seller or a fan favourite and the viewing figures are great, Sky, the promoter, they want you on that TV slot up near prime time. If you're not, then you get your work, you get your shows, but you're boxing down the list, and that's where you are. But if you're not a commodity and you don't have a title, where you at? You're nowhere. And this is how the business works. Jamie understood that. I understand that. So the thing is, Jamie can make the weight, and he was making the weight. It's hard work, very hard work. But being at that weight for so long, and he wasn't going to give it up. He finally got a nutritionist on board. And he had an issue with his very good nutritionist, and then took on another nutritionist who this turned out to be his third fight with us. Nothing wrong with the first two fights, but on the third fight and the title fight, the biggest title fight of James' life, he fucked up. He brought James when the morning of the weigh-in, when I was told what Jamie woke up at on the morning of the weigh-in, I knew straight away, completely fucked. I knew we're fucked straight away. And I said that to the guys in the room, and I said, we're fucked. And he was like, oh, no, he's brought, and when because I thought it was messed up, and he'd come in heavier than what he normally is. I know if Jamie comes in at a certain weight, if he wakes up on the morning of the weigh-in at a certain weight, I know we'll make the weight, no problem. When you're waking up on the morning of the weight and you're 3 pounds over that weight, I know, fucked. At what? But then to be told that the nutritionist brought him in that weight on purpose, I'm like, what? Now, if you're a qualified nutritionist or you're a qualified S&C coach, you're an expert in that field, right? You don't tell me how to do my job as a boxing coach, because that's not your field. You might know a bit, but that's not your field. You stick to your S&C, and you don't tell me, if you're a nutritionist, how to be a boxing coach. You stick to nutritionist. But likewise, I don't interfere with my nutritionist that I trust to do the job. Not me, the fighter trusts. The fighter employs a nutritionist. But I trust. I give you the trust. I don't interfere, because who am I to say, this, and everything's fine. Everything's fine. Performance in the gym and everything's fine. The weight fine. Everything's fine. It's just the morning of the weighing. If you wake up the morning of the weighing heavier, and that's the first that I know about it, you're fucking late. It's like with S&C coaches. I don't interfere in the S&C coaches until it starts affecting my performances in the gym as a boxing coach with my fighter. If then it's like, then I'll say, listen, I don't know what you're doing, blah, blah, but this needs changing, that needs changing. His legs are heavy, or this. So I've done that. But morning of the weigh-in, when it's a crucial bit, that's too late. And so, needless to say, we don't work with that guy anymore. I've got Scott Robinson on board now with the fighters, and he's proven at elite level, and he's done a fantastic job with the fighters ever since. But it's not an excuse. It was him against the monster. Right? It's not an excuse. But the issue with the weight is he was a shell. He was a shell of a man. And the problem is, I've said this before, I want him to give up the title, but he wasn't giving up his title on the scales. No, I've got him and his wife telling me that if he gives up the title, he obviously pays comes down, he gets fined, blah, blah, blah. He's going to have to, if you don't fight, he's going to have to remortgage his house. Things like that. So you're talking about people's livelihoods going forward. So all my mentality there is keep him safe. If he gets through the first round, there's no way I was letting him have a dogfight. If he gets through the first round, that's it. Pull him out. You've got an injury. You don't care at that point. You'll take. You don't care. You've just got to do your best for the fighter in the situation that you're at. It's easy for people to judge and say, "Oh, you shouldn't let him in the ring," and this and that. But he was going to get into the ring. At that point, so what did you do? So, "Oh no, I'm not going that corner with you." So fuck his head up even more. At that point, you've just got to cajole him and talk to him and try and build a little bit of confidence in him, just to get him in there and be safe. And then pray that you don't get that nothing untoward happens. But that's where the cornerman then isn't there to win. The cornerman there is there to save the fighter and to make sure he gets in there and gets through there safe. And that was the only. The guys that was with us, Richard Towers, Jordan Gill, Danny Wilson, they know the mentality of the camp, how it switched just in those few hours. It switched completely.